Hello everyone, I'm joined by Nick Ruddock, a performance gymnastics coach and consultant who provides world-class information to the international gymnastics community. He inspires both gymnasts and coaches alike. Thank you, Nick, for joining me.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the invitation to come on your show. Much appreciated.
So we're going to start with some basic questions, okay? Just a little bit about you, what you do to explain. Obviously, I've just given you a brief introduction, but it's just to help the listeners and viewers know a bit about you.
Sounds good.
Okay, so I just want to start with how's your lockdown been, what we've been doing and stuff like that.
Okay, lockdown for me has actually been pretty good. I feel like I've been quite insulated from it, and you know, Faith, that a lot of my work is done internationally. It's away from home, and it can be a bit hectic sometimes, you know, traveling to multiple countries throughout a month. So actually, the time for me to be at home with my fiancée Leonie and my two dogs, and just to have a bit more normality around my schedule was actually really, really nice. I've quite enjoyed that. Of course, it did have some challenges for the business because my events haven't been able to run. All my consultancy, whether that was at home and abroad, has obviously been cancelled or put on hold. So like most of the viewers and the listeners, my kind of day-to-day work and business was also disrupted. And I guess that was also an opportunity for me to further develop other areas of the business, which we had to improve really, such as the digital content and the Gymnastics Growth Academy, which I know you're aware of. And so I can't say it was a negative experience for me personally. You know, I got to see these things as opportunity as much as possible.
Of course, yeah. And obviously before lockdown happened, where were you last? Like international, like across the world, where were you?
Across the world, I would imagine it would have probably been in Germany. I'm in Germany every month, or I am typically when there isn't a pandemic. So spend a fair bit of time over there working with their seniors on the run up actually to Tokyo. Of course, that's now been pushed back. So I said I'll continue that work through to Tokyo if it takes place, fingers crossed, next year. And I believe that probably would have been the last trip that I did before lockdown actually occurred.
And obviously you were on a bit about your Gymnastics Growth Academy, and obviously masterclasses have been put on hold. What made you come up with that? What influenced you or inspired you to come up with stuff like that?
So I think it was being part of a program like that in the business world that really inspired me to want to do something for gymnastics as well. And I remember being at an event, a national event, a bit like GymCon that I also run. It was like that. It was a conference style event, and I'm sitting there and I've got these resource packs in front of me, and I just love like the branding and the whole kind of presence and ambience of having so many people together who are like-minded and that all want to learn, and then, you know, listening to great speakers on stage. And I came away from that just learning so much. But whilst I was there on the day, I just kept on thinking, can I do this for gymnastics? Like, I want to do this for gymnastics. And I was quite young at the time. You know, we're going back quite a few years, probably a decade now. Maybe not quite a decade actually, but somewhere in that region. And I really felt passionate and excited about the opportunity to do that. And like anything, you know, you get an idea and sometimes you kind of park it in the back of your mind and you come around to it and you procrastinate. And eventually I started the process off with just one event. One event led to an annual event, which was of course GymCon. Then kind of all that developed into the masterclasses as well. And whilst I've been traveling around the world, as I mentioned before, you know, it's not the easiest lifestyle. I mean, people think of it as being glamorous and exciting. And yes, in some ways it of course is exciting. And I'm very privileged to have had the opportunity to do that. But it's also quite exhausting. It's not the healthiest of lifestyles. And I felt really that I was often sharing the same information in every country that I was going to. That can also become a bit tedious. So what I decided to do was, okay, let's think about a way that I can make all this information that I'm sharing more accessible to everyone in the world. So not just these Olympic federations that have got the cash and have got the, they've got the resources to be able to fly me in and work with their athletes and coaches for a week. You know, I want to get to the everyday gymnastics coach that's in a club, that might be working at a county level, a regional level. They might even be a volunteer. I want this information to go to them. And that's how the Gymnastics Growth Academy was born, really, with kind of a combination of being inspired by being part of someone else's program in the business world, which is similar to that, and then thinking about how I can, reach more people around the world.
So for any of the listeners and viewers out there that are still unsure about what you do, like properly, could you just explain a bit more, expand on that?
Absolutely. Many things. The first one, I try and soften the learning curve for gymnastics coaches. Gymnastics, the world that we live in, is incredibly complex. Even just to come in at a low level of coaching is challenging. There's just so much to learn. And the responsibilities of coaches is always kind of increasing, or at least the demand of the coach, quite rightly so, raise our standards, deliver better, understand the athlete. There's an awful lot to learn. So a lot of my work, particularly when I'm working with federations, is actually working directly with the coaches. So for example, an international body will contact me to work directly with their national level coaches. And that could be from an educational perspective, could be working at a strategic level, or it could just be hands-on coaching with the athletes and coaches as well in the gym. But a lot of it is around trying to soften that learning curve, challenge people's thinking, think a little bit differently. And definitely everything that I do now is kind of wrapped up in the educational space. So it's providing opportunities for coaches to expand their knowledge, and also to be excited about that, and to expand not just their knowledge of gymnastics, but their development as an individual. So their holistic development. And that's why I've got, again, as you know, coaching programs, different types of events. There's the free content, such as the podcasts, the blogs, the Facebook groups. There's all those different things. And it's all there to build up, or to help coaches to develop their holistic development, irrespective of where they are in the world, how much money they've got to spend, how much experience they've got. I want people to be able to grab a resource from me that can help them in their coaching journey. So it's really around improving the quality of life of the coach and athlete, and improve the day-to-day, journey that they have and experience they have through the sport.
Fantastic. So obviously you mentioned a little bit about your podcast and stuff like that. So obviously Nick has podcasts. Could you just explain why your podcast came about, how it came about, and things like that?
Yeah, so my podcast is called The Gymnastics Growth Show. It's available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I think we've done about 40 episodes now, and most of the time I'm interviewing practitioners and coaches that I believe have got a great story, a great philosophy, and just great teachings that the listeners can listen to. We've got people listening in over 55 countries now. I'm really proud of the show. And again, I think it came around from me listening to podcasts, not within the gymnastics space, because at the time I don't think there was particularly many around which were specific to coaching. That there were some which were designed more for the fans out there, but really in terms of like coaching and listening to high level coaches, there wasn't many around at the time, if any. So I was inspired by me listening to podcasts, and I thought, okay, well, it's not only a good tool for me to add to my kind of business repertoire, it's a marketing tool at the end of the day. It's also helping me in my mission of reaching people with free content, and hopefully inspiring people to improve their coaching. And it's certainly done that because of the feedback that I've managed to get from the podcast itself. We get great feedback all the time. And it's quite a cool feeling, when you get a message or a screenshot and someone says, I'm listening to Nick Ruddock's Gymnastics Growth Show on my way to work, or, walking my dogs along the beach and Nick Ruddock's keeping me company. And that's quite a cool feeling to know that I don't actually have to be there with that person, but I can still have an impact, and so can the guests on the show. And you'll be doing exactly the same thing here with your podcast.
Hopefully, hopefully.
Absolutely.
Obviously, you're talking about inspiration. What makes you feel inspired? Obviously, you're talking about your podcast, you inspired you, but just what makes you inspired in general, Who influences you?
Yeah, I think it changes a lot, Faith. I think my early mentors in coaching were certainly my inspiration, but they were more my inspiration about how to improve myself, and how to give myself a better chance of getting great results with the athletes. So it came more from an ego perspective, not necessarily in a negative way, but it was more centered around me. So they were inspiring me to be a better version of me, to coach better, to get better results. And I think that's changed over the years. Not that I'm no longer inspired by these individuals, because they are my heroes, and they've really given me a great boost in the sport. But what I'm more interested now is impact and contribution, because that's what is inspiring for me. It's people that can make a significant impact on the quality of life of other people. And that's what I'm really looking to do in the education space within gymnastics, and probably maybe broadening that across multiple sports later on in my career, if you like. What I'm inspired by is people that can selflessly, as well, there is an element of always being selfish, but yeah, as selflessly as possible, contribute to the better quality of life of other people. That could be through charity work, it could be just through their doesn't need to be charitable, it can be through still a business, but who can make a great impact. And those people really inspire me now, of thinking, you know, I've obviously got experience within gymnastics, I've got knowledge just like we all have. You know, I've got great contacts and resources. You know, I'm English speaking, which is a great advantage when it comes to education, because a lot of people around the world speak English. And you go, I've got all these opportunities. Well, how can I bring all that together and use that and really leverage that to help people? You know, I'm in a great opportunity to help people. And that's now my measure of success, is impact. So I follow a lot of people that just are very impactful through their education resources that they release. And again, it could be the business world, could be the personal development world, it could be the gymnastics world. And that's where I get my inspiration from now. And also I get it from the people that I'm working with on a day-to-day basis. So, you know, my clients, you know, they really do inspire me with the amazing work ethic and the progress and their values and their philosophies. And I think surrounding yourself with really good people with a great message, personally, I find that to be completely inspiring as well. And that just keeps me going.
So what advice would you give to someone wanting to enter the gymnastics world, like being maybe a gymnast in general, or a gymnastics coach or something like that?
Well, I certainly think for new coaches, it would be about rubbing shoulders with people that you want to emulate and to model yourself. Okay, so find a role model, find someone that has been successful, but also has got great values and philosophies that you can align with, and that align with just a general moral compass, and spend as much time with those people as possible. Because if you want to learn, the best way to learn is to learn from others that have been there and done it before. And it's like, you know, reading books as well, and listening to podcasts and going on courses. You know, these are all ways of just gaining knowledge from people that have been there and made so many mistakes before. So if I read a book, I'm basically getting a fast track of knowledge that might have taken me 30 years to learn myself. And I'm able to consume that book within a few days. And that I find is remarkable, that there's so much literature out there and so many resources that you're basically just, you're speeding up that learning process, and you're learning from other people's mistakes. And I really feel that that is a great bit of advice for anyone in life, really, is that when you want to achieve something, surround yourself with people that can help you to get there. And also just, you know, be a creator of opportunity, because opportunities don't always come to you. I mean, part of my story was contacting as many high-level coaches as possible in the United States and trying to create relationships in order to learn. And that was successful. A lot of coaches just aren't prepared to do those sorts of things. They don't want to put themselves out there. They don't want to write that email or pick up the phone for whatever reason. And unfortunately, to those people, you know, opportunity is not going to come to them. You've got to go out and find it. So
exactly.
Yeah, just be committed to that.
How do you continue to learn to stay on top of your role? Obviously, you're talking about books.
Yeah.
You know, do you constantly read? Do you, you know, what other resources do you use to help you learn, to help others learn?
Yeah, I think it's multifaceted, really. I mean, I've just pulled up a book. I ordered this book yesterday or 2 days ago. It arrived yesterday. That's the beauty of Amazon Prime these days. And yeah, this one's the 4 stages of psychological safety, because it's a topic that I'm interested in. Now, I'm not going to lie to yourself and your listeners and say that I read every day. I strive to read like 3 times a week. And I think that's realistic, considering, you know, I'm running multiple businesses. I've got a lot of clients to serve, and, you know, all the other areas of my life as well. So, you know, getting into a book 3 times a week for me is my objective. And that way I'm actually able to get through a book a week, which is a really positive thing. Podcasts are easier for me to consume, because I tend to do that whilst I'm doing a workout, or I'm in the car, or just kind of doing other tasks. And mentorship, you know, I regularly, probably on a weekly, bi-weekly basis, have got calls with some of my mentors. And some of those aren't defined as mentors, like in a formal way. They might just be friends, but friends that I can learn an awful lot from. You know, it might just be a random ad hoc phone call, but, you know, the people that I glean a lot of information from and I can learn from. Online courses, you know, I'm really guilty of buying online courses all the time. And I'll be honest, Faith, a lot of this stuff, it's not actually gymnastics specific. It's personal development specific. It's about, understanding, awareness, awakening, ego, all of these different things, which I just find fascinating, because the more knowledge we have of ourselves, the more we can impact other people through our coaching.
Exactly,
anyways.
yeah.
Yeah. So they're not directly gymnastics specific, but they have a gymnastics or a direct correlation with the quality of coaching that I'm able to deliver, whether that's to an athlete or that's to any of my clients around the world.
Fantastic. What is one of the most important lessons you've ever learned as a coach or a consultant?
Oh, that's a big question. Okay, I need a moment to think about this one. It's going to be around relationships, I'm sure. It's probably the biggest mistakes that I've made in my development as an adult, I'm going to say, not just as a coach, but as an adult, would be about relationship management and conflict management. And these are things that you don't learn at school. You don't tend to learn these on coaching courses. It's kind of like life lessons. But I would, if I could go back to when I was 15, I would have invested more time in understanding how to have better relationships with people, how to avoid or manage conflict, not necessarily to avoid it. And I don't think if I look back, I would avoid those situations from happening, but I would have managed them differently, because life is all about relationships. And that's all we have. It's interaction with each other. And I think that we're going to get that right, and we're going to get that really, really wrong. And so, if I could, I'd like to kind of go back and manage some of those situations a little bit differently.
I think a lot of people will struggle with relationships, especially with this huge lockdown we've just had. Just everything would have just gone out the window, all all our social interactions would have just gone. But
Yeah, or the intensity of spending a lot of time with the same people, I think that's certainly something in the gymnastics space at a high level. If you're working 25, 30 hours a week, or you're on consecutive training camps, you're spending all those hours with a group of coaches, and you've kind of forced to do that, because you might not necessarily be friends, you might not even get on with each other, you might have totally different views on the world, but you're kind of forced into that space quite intensely over consecutive weeks if you're leading up to a big competition. And that's just the nature of bringing personal coaches together with their athletes. But that can be really tricky, and it's something that does need a lot of management.
What do you wish you had known when you first started out in gymnastics and coaching and consultancy and all that?
Probably that the best athletes and my best work would happen later on in my career, and not to rush. Also, it's not about me, it's about the athlete. That's certainly an early issue that a lot of coaches have, is the focus is very self-centered, rather than
100%
it being focused around the athlete and the athlete's needs. And to be honest, it's not that I wasn't told that, but it's really difficult to almost for the penny to drop for yourself. It's one of those, and you'll know this, Faith, like when your parents tell you something, you're like, yeah, but you don't take it in. And then at some point later on in life, you will realize that they were right all along, but you just kind of didn't recognize that. It's annoying, that, isn't it? But then you recognize it, and it's almost like you can hear a lesson over and over again. The penny has to drop for yourself, and that one for me was about, it's not about me, it's not about my ego. Don't be in a rush. Your success is not based on the level of athlete you work with. It's about so many more things than that, more important things. So those are things I would like to kind of go in and plant in my head. It wouldn't have been enough just to tell me, because I was probably being told already.
Yeah, I feel like that's the situation with everyone. The seed needs to be planted before anything. Like if you just tell someone, I mean, sometimes in people's minds it sticks, but not enough.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the issue.
Yeah, and it's kind of experiential learning. Like my parents might have told me that lesson over and over again, but until I actually experience a negative consequence of not listening to that, it's not going to connect with me. So there'd probably be some of my earlier lessons I wish I'd had. I mean, I was really proactive. I've always been interested in learning, so it's never been about that. I've had an ego, but I also was fascinated by learning at the same time. So the ego was more of a social mask. It wasn't an arrogance of thinking that I knew it all necessarily, but there wasn't an understanding. I did probably think that I knew more than I actually did. Again, a common mistake for for a lot of early coaches.
Yeah. Where do you see yourself in 5 years, let's say?
Oh, you know what? I was thinking about this the other day, Faith, and I was like, things have changed recently a little bit because just, I don't know, the direction of my my business, my career, if you want to call it that, is a little bit different. And I almost felt that I wasn't quite sure. I know I've got some clarity definitely on what's happening in the immediate future. You know, it's to build the Gymnastics Growth Academy and the Inner Circle program to be much bigger than they are, to run bigger events, more events. So all of that, absolutely. What I think is likely, and is that I'm going to branch out to some other kind of areas around the coaching space. And when I say coaching, I'm not talking about gymnastics coaching, but the coaching of people. And what I've discovered in my time of doing consultancy and working with my clients is that 80% of the stuff that we end up talking about is nothing to do with gymnastics necessarily. It's about the psychology of things.
Yeah.
It's about the mindset. And of course that the mindset and psychology is impacting the day-to-day lives of gymnastics coaches and leaders. And it's made me fascinated, and it's made me realize that I should probably expand my knowledge of some topics to do with psychology to better be able to coach people, so I can combine my gymnastics knowledge with the ability to coach people at a really high level. And what I'd quite like to do is dip into neuro-linguistic programming a bit further. I've already done some work in it, but I'd like to do more, possibly even hypnotherapy and some other kind of psychological areas like that can really help me and contribute to the work that I'm already doing with athletes and coaches. So that's probably where I see myself in 5 years onwards. Yes.
So obviously you just talked a little bit about the Inner Circle. Obviously my mum and dad are part of the Inner Circle. Just tell us a bit about how that came about as well, and how long that's been going on for.
Yeah, so when I first stopped personal coaching, I began consultancy, and I started working with clubs around the country, and they were part of what I had a program called Private Clients Program. I worked with them 2 days a month, and they got a whole range of other things included, such as, you know, access to me anytime and access to the events. And what happened is that as my international schedule got busier, and I could have been in literally 5 countries in a month, I could no longer offer these clients, 2 days a month of time with me, because it ended up being sort of 10 days out my month. And so what I did, I replaced that with the Inner Circle program. And that meant that coaches could have, really close access to me and my resources, my events, my digital content, and all those different things, without me actually needing to be in their gyms. And it didn't mean that I didn't have to go to their gym. I still could do, but most of it is online education. So we do weekly calls, group calls, one-to-one coaching calls. There's unlimited access to events, unlimited access to all my digital content. Access to the Gymnastics Growth Academy, monthly meetings, and it's quite a big package really that's there, and it's designed to help coaches who are in leadership positions, but also the clubs themselves. And again, a program that's been massively successful and has really transformed a lot of people's lives. I'm very, very proud of it. So I'm looking to expand that moving forwards and kind of build a team around that. And I guess again, the catalyst for that was probably by being part of another program myself within the business world, which was exactly the same. And so I kind of replicated that model and was part of that, thinking, you know what, I could do this for gymnastics. It could really help a lot of people and be great for the business too. And so, it's a few years old now, and I'm really proud of it.
Wow. Apart from being a gymnastics coach, consultant, what other profession would you have chosen?
I've always been fascinated with something to do with the armed forces or the police, some form of like emergency services. So I'm probably not cut out for it, however, but I've always been fascinated by it. My friends always say that you wouldn't last a minute in the army. They're probably true, probably right. And the police was always interesting to me, not so much now, but it was when I was younger. So I don't know, maybe I could have ended up somewhere in that field. Other than that, I don't know. I'd like to think it will be still something to do with coaching people or individuals. Fishing is one of my passions, but it's not a particularly good, not particularly many careers in full-time fishing. So, I would say probably I'd stick with my police or my armed forces hat in terms of desire. That's what I would have liked to have done anyway.
Fantastic. Obviously, you're just on about your fishing. Is fishing your favourite hobby? That is the question I have to ask.
It is. I had a long break from it, Faith. I used to do it years ago when I was sort of 15, 16. I had years and years off it. And then for my 30th birthday, which so 3 years ago now, Leonie, my fiance, bought me some fishing gear. She knew I wanted to get back into it again. And I think she probably regrets that decision now because of the, you know, I try and spend a couple of nights at the lake every 2 weeks is what I tend to do. So that's easy to do when I'm not traveling around the world like now. Otherwise it's a bit trickier. But yeah, just for me, the tranquility of sitting by water, by being totally away from the day-to-day kind of craziness of running the businesses, kind of being away from anybody, to be honest with you, and just being in a remote environment, out in nature, in beautiful surroundings. It's kind of like my meditation, and I do a lot of thinking, do a lot of reading, and yeah, it's kind of takes me back to my childhood as well, the excitement of you know, catching fish and stuff like that. So yeah, I do love it, and it's definitely my number one hobby. It's my only hobby, to be honest. I don't have any others.
What do you think your unique skills are that contribute to your coaching, to your consultancy and stuff, and your businesses?
Okay, I'll go with coaching first, then I'll do consultancy, then I'll do business. I'll do them separate. And these have changed and linked to the questions that you'd asked earlier. And by the way, these are really good questions. I would say that linked to my coaching, my skill now is probably relationships, believe it or not. And then that's come around full circle, you see, because I've had to learn, knowing the mistakes that I've made with, you know, athletes and coaches and just getting things wrong. I've invested a lot of time in being better than that. So I've got a lot of very good relationships with athletes around the world. You know, obviously I work with a lot of seniors in different countries. So that's been great. Same with coaches, to be honest with you. I believe I've got an ability to convey information really well. So I can, you know, coming back down to softening that learning curve. If there's a complex topic, I believe I'm pretty good at being able to communicate that in a simple way and being able to teach people the concepts of that, and you know, do that through the animation work that we've got throughout the Gymnastics Growth Academy, or just, you know, different analogies and things like that. So I'd say that's probably some of my strengths in coaching. In my consultancy, it would be probably looking at things in a helicopter, non-emotional perspective. And I think that's the benefit of me entering into another country with no attachment necessarily to those athletes or their program. You know, it's not my day-to-day job. I don't work with those people every day. So I can come into something and look at things from a helicopter view very strategically and understand what is good about that environment, what's not good, and where the improvements need to be made. And then I can help countries with those improvements. And from a business perspective, my strengths in the business is probably my work ethic, is that it's not easy running a couple of companies, soon to be 4.
Wow.
It's well, one of them's a charity, but that's not easy to do, particularly when you're flying around the world all the time. You know, you lose a lot of time in traveling, and it's disruptive to the business. And so probably my work ethic, just that kind of relentless, let's get down and let's get this done. And it's all about, for me, the driver is the vision. That's what pulls me forwards like a magnet. It's you know, looking forwards and having absolute clarity on where I want to get to and what exactly the business does need to look like in 2, 3, 4 years time, and what I'm trying to achieve. And because I've got so much clarity on that, that vision pulls me forwards, and it's inspiring and it's motivational, as opposed to someone having to kind of push me from behind and go, come on, Nick, you got to work more and think about if you worked harder, what you could achieve and how it could help people. It's not a push, it's a pull. Something's pulling me forwards.
Yeah.
So, yeah, those are just some of the strengths. I think we've all got many strengths, really. We've also got a lot of weaknesses, unfortunately. But yeah, those are just a few of the strengths that I think I've got.
So I think we touched on this at the start, but what was the last federation you worked with?
Germany. Germany would have been the last one. I think at the, oh God, it feels like a long time ago since I've been traveling, to be honest with you. But yeah, it would have been Germany. I don't think I've done any big trips, sort of transatlantic trips, and around Europe, perhaps. I think some of the Nordic countries at the back end of last year as well, around, you know, Sweden and countries like that. But yeah, certainly Germany. Actually, it's coming back to me now. I did a training camp in Martinique in January with it was a joint training camp with the German and French national teams, and I think that was the last camp I've done, actually. Yeah, that was, and that was an amazing trip. I mean, we made a lot of progress. We had a lot of fun, and hey, it's in Martinique. It's in a Caribbean country, so it was absolutely beautiful as well.
Fantastic. again, I think we've touched on this before, but who are the 3 most influential people in your life?
Okay.
Top 3.
The top 3 influential people in my life. Oh, wow. That is such a tough question. Okay. Number 1 is my fiance Leonie. Top spot, 100%. You know, she's had a really positive impact on me and my life, and she's made me a better person. And she's sometimes my moral compass. She helps to guide me and to help me with challenges and being a better person, really. You know, she's very emotional, intelligent, very compassionate, very empathetic, and she's got a great understanding of people. And so I love her very much for that. So she takes my number 1 top spot.
Fantastic.
I would say that probably I've got a core group of friends, Richard Dwyer being one of them that you'll be familiar with, I think.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Program involvement. And Richard is a great friend and also a great mentor. He inspires me. He encourages me. He guides me. He challenges me. And I think that they're all the things that you want from people within your close social and professional circle, is that you want people to challenge you. You know, is that right?
Yeah.
Did you do the right thing there? And surely you can do that better. Or that's not really up to par, but massively encouraging, really inspiring. And so I get a lot from that friendship, and both professionally and personally. And he's been very influential for me. And I'd like to think that he would say similar things about my relationship with him as well, because we've got a it's not a transactional relationship at all, but he helps me an awful lot with the business kind of world, and I'm able to help him a little bit more with the gymnastics side of things as he runs a gymnastics business. But yeah, he's been massively influential. And the third, I can't put this down to one person, unfortunately, but a handful of mentors: Valeri Lukin, Awan Armane Fong, Dennis Edwards, Carol Angela Orchard. I mean, there's an extensive list. You know, Ula from Germany, Gerben Wiersma. It's a massive long list of mentors and people that I've been really fortunate to work with, and I wouldn't want to put any of those above one another, because they are all able and have impacted my life in different ways. Yeah.
Brilliant.
I feel like I would hate to listen back to this and think, oh, I've missed someone. Yeah, hopefully I've nailed it there. Let's see.
Thank you so much, Nick, for joining me. It's been wonderful.
Much appreciated. I've really enjoyed it. Thanks very much.
And thank you to the listeners and viewers. Please make sure to subscribe to our channel. If you're on YouTube, please like this video, comment down below if this helped you, and we'll see you next time, guys. Bye.